What is poppin' squad? It's your boy Jesimein. Today, we about to react to my man Marco Styles' video on PvP. Now, you guys know I'm a big PvP guy. This is what I revolve myself around pretty much. And, you know, this is a topic that people need to talk about. Unfortunately, it's such a touchy topic to the point where nobody really wants to. But obviously, Marco put out a video, and I'm curious to see what my man thinks about it. And I got permission from him. For all people are gonna say, "Oh, you're copying his video for views." No, I'm not. I just want to really watch this with you guys. If whoever has seen it or hasn't seen it, it's just so I can get my input on it as well. So without further ado, this is a long video, so hopefully, you know what I'm saying, that we can get through it. I am going to be pausing because I'm going to be speaking on if I agree with something, I disagree with something, just so we can get that transparency factor, you feel me? So without further ado, let's get into this man's video, and prepare yourself. Somebody might be triggered, so let's get it.
Alright, let's talk about PvP in a Division 2. It's a topic that I've been avoiding on my channel since launch, pretty much. And that has a few reasons. I'm not gonna name them all now. But today, I am finally going to talk about PvP, which is going to make some players happy and some players not so happy.
Always does.
So yeah, it's not scripted. I just wanna talk about the PvP a little bit. I'm not gonna suggest or push for changes because I feel like that's just not useful. I just want to share my thoughts pretty much. That's all. Because, you know, I think that the PvP in a Division 2 is pretty bad. But I don't think that it is bad because of some talents or some builds or, you know, some things that seem too strong. Or maybe some checkpointers. Sure, there are some minor annoyances that those type of things bring to the game. But it's not really the big issue, I feel like. Because the Division 1 had a lot of those small things that made the game a little bit less enjoyable in PvP. Builds that were OP, some OP skills here and there. You know, we had a lot of annoying metas with the Division 1, but I could still have a lot of fun with the PvP in the Division 1. And I feel like that with the Division 2, that is just simply not the case. And for me to have fun with the game, many systems need to be overhauled completely. And first of all, I don't think that's ever going to happen. And second of all, I don't think a lot of people want that to happen. The developers probably don't want to overhaul it because this is the system that they've been working towards. This is what they want for the game. And a lot of players who currently enjoy the system that are in place probably also don't want an overhaul. So I'm not going to sit here and ask for changes or specific things. I'm just going to explain in this video why I really don't enjoy PvP and why I've already kind of given up on it, to be honest. Because, you know, there's a point with video games where you can say, alright, this game is fun, you know, I'm having fun with this game, but it could still be better by changing X, Y, and Z. And for me, that was the case with the Division 1's PvP, you know, the game wasn't perfect, we had a lot of broken things, especially when the game just came out, but over time, it grew a little better and better, and there was a point, you know, between patch 1.4 and in between patch 1.7, where I think the PvP was kind of good for the Division 1. I think a lot of players can agree to that. So yeah, there's a point where you could say, okay, the game's not perfect, but it's still fun. But then there's also a point with other video games where the game would have to be so different at its core for you to enjoy it that I think it's just better as an individual to accept that maybe the game simply isn't for you. And for me personally, I think the Division 2 is definitely in that ballpark. I don't think I'll ever enjoy the PvP in the Division 2 simply because of the way that it is set up. The game is definitely not bad. It has a lot of gear to collect and some of that gear has some really interesting talents, but the PvP gameplay itself is just such a shallow experience that no matter the build or no matter the environment that I play it in, could be the Dark Zone, could be Occupied or Conflict, it is just not fun or engaging, and I don't think that will ever change, no matter what type of gear they add to the game, because...
Okay, so, while I agree, it's not the same as Division 1 as far as engagements and how active it was and stuff. I can't say that if they added more gear sets or if they changed how gear sets worked in certain roles and stuff, that it would never change. Just want to put emphasis on that it would never is such a broad statement, because I remember in Division 1, when the shotgun meta was out, like people quit, right? That was it. Nobody wanted to do with that. And all it took was a little, even though it was a one tap meta, even with full heals and all that, they changed it just by changing the gear and adding extra stuff to go about rolling and stuff. And that changed the whole feel of it. I hear what he's saying as far as it can look like that because, you know, it's a new system. And if people aren't accepting the new system as is, that's not going to change. I mean, their system's not going to change. But different gear sets that actually like contribute to PvP, I feel will make a difference. These last 3 gear sets aren't necessarily PvP gear sets. There's no real impact, so you don't feel the difference. But I feel once they integrate some that are PvP related, it could definitely change. So I'm just putting that out there.
Again, it's not the gear that's the issue. So what do I mean by a shallow experience then? Well, that's that there's absolutely no playmaking mechanics in this game whatsoever.
Okay, Marco just shut me up. He said it's not the gear. That's crazy that I paused it right there. GG, bro.
There is very little that a player can learn, that a player can practice, or that a player can do to improve his gameplay other than simply having a better build. And as a result, every PvP fight in this game goes down in the same way. 2 players press their skills, then they see each other, they start aiming at each other, they shoot each other, and then one of them dies and the other one doesn't die. That's literally how every fight goes in this game. And while you could say, well, all shooters have that, don't they? I mean, at the end of the day, that is what shooter games are about. You shoot guns at each other. But I'd have to disagree with that because, you know, let's look at some other games. And we're going to look at other shooters here because that's really how this game feels in PvP. It doesn't feel like an RPG at all, but that's another topic. But yeah, let's look at some other shooters. For example, Halo. You know, every map in the game of Halo has power weapons all across the map that you can collect. The battles themselves include strafing and jumping really high to like dodge bullets and outplay each other. There are shortcuts all around the map. It has highly vertical gameplay and, you know, we can just keep going on. We have Rainbow Six Siege, which has destructible environments, deeply complex maps, and a one-hit headshot system to reward really good aim. It has interesting gadgets that really force different strategies upon the opponents and force them to switch their playstyle from round to round. And systems like that really allow players to practice and practice and practice and get better at the game and better at the game and better at the game. Battlefield has vehicular combat, aerial combat, destructible environments, and massive 64-player servers, which, even though it isn't as competitive, it can still be intense. Titanfall has wall running, fast movement that allow you to outplay the opponents just through movement alone. Same can be said for Apex Legends. And then I look at the Division 2 PvP and Conflict, and what does that really offer? I'll let you know what it offers.
So, I hear what he's saying as far as, you know, all those PvP games he named, they all have their qualities, right? That drag players in their specific things that they're perfect at, right? The running gun, the mechanics, and all that. But I'm a Division fanatic. I love Division. Most people watching this love Division. Period. Even regardless of flaws or not. I don't see how that can be compared necessarily because Division, remember, and this is a big argument that a lot of people don't like, and even myself, people say Division is a PvE focus with a side of PvP. Although I disagree 100% because PvP community is just as strong and just as important, I feel development-wise, they put a lot into PvE, right? Obviously, all the missions and stuff, in order to get that loot to get PvP, that's where the focus is at. So instead of having all the energy spent on having phenomenal mechanics as far as like how Apex Legends has the hero system in PvP and Overwatch and stuff like that, and Rainbow Six Siege with destructible environments and operators and all that, that's because most of the game was dedicated to PvP, if that makes sense. Those games are specific. Battlefield especially, it has a campaign, sure, but the campaign is the side piece. And Battlefield is known strictly, like Call of Duty, multiplayer and PvP. That's where all their work's going towards. I think with Division, because it's not all into PvP, we won't fully ever get that level of true commitment, development-wise and mechanic-wise in PvP because PvE exists, right? PvE is the heartbeat as far as the Division overall general consensus is. Even though I focus on PvP, I'm all about PvP. I could play PvP for the next 10 years without touching PvE if I didn't have to. But I understand realistically, we all know on a development standpoint, PvE is where the gems are for them, right? So I don't compare it in that way. Like, there's times where I'm like, man, I'm gonna try to compare this to another shooter or this. Like, why do we only have 2 game modes? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't compare it to a game that has like 15 different game modes and things are revolved around PvP because that's the focus. And for me, in Division 1, I stopped thinking like that. I was like, you know what? I love the PvP. I think it should be the main part of the game. Unfortunately, it's not. There's no point in me even expecting to have that much energy put into PvP because they only have so much to work with. The game's huge on a grand scale anyways, so being able to have resources to dedicate that much into PvP, that would be a perfect game in my opinion. Like, that would be pushing into the limits of, oh, we wish we could have that. You know what I'm saying? That's like saying right now, if they release Division 2 with survival, a battle royale, with a horde mode, and with something else, something around PvP, a freaking capture the flag, all that all in one up front, then you'd be like, you know what? I see where I can compare that. But we only have conflict and domination because PvP is a development in progress for them, right? They're releasing game modes as they come, and they're releasing different ways to play. For me, even though domination is not that huge of a factor, I can see the direction of what happens when they start testing into those fields, and that's where you can embrace that. So as far as comparing it to, I find it kind of hard to. I can see why you do it because you have to compare it to another enjoyable PvP experience, right? You have to. I mean, you have to line it up on standards of what else could I play for PvP? What is Division PvP going to give me that the other ones won't give? And that's where we step into the true debate on what needs to change. So just putting that out there.
You know, 4 players spawn in. They run to the middle of the map. They use all their skills before the fight, which is most likely going to be the deflector drone, because that's one of the only skills that's actually useful. And then they face tank each other until somebody dies. It could be with an assault rifle, an SMG, an LMG, or a rifle, or maybe even with a sniper, but that's basically the whole game. All the skills in the game you have to press before a fight starts because they're too slow and too clunky to do anything mid-fight. And the movement is so slow that while shooting each other, even the most potato players can hit 95% of their bullets. Because the movement is so slow, it's almost impossible not to hit.
I don't know, man. Maybe that's a PC experience, because console, we got, well, even PC too, because I'm on PC, I had some bots. But there's some bots, potato, like potato tot. They'll miss. I understand what he's talking about. I'm not disagreeing, I'm just saying, there are some bots. Don't think everybody can hit shots, because I've ran into some people who were like shooting up in the air. It's crazy. Anyways.
And the DZ is pretty much the exact same, but it is slower than Conflict because you have more time in between fights, and sometimes the opponents also do not shoot back because you kill them from behind. How exciting. But yeah, let's pause the video here, I guess, for a second, because I don't want to turn this video into an endless rant. I actually want to keep this a somewhat proper video and just really calmly go over the Divisions 2 PvP point by point and compare it to the Division 1 and how the Division 1 was different in some ways that made the PvP more fun. Even though, yeah, we can all admit that the balancing with the Division 1 PvP was also way off. There were some stupid mechanics, I guess, but it was still fun. This is not a video about balancing or which gear sets are the best. This is just a video looking at the fundamentals, I guess. So yeah, let's look at the Division 1. For example, the skills and talents, the thing I just talked about. In the Division 1, no matter what patch we played in, there were always mechanics in the game that allowed experienced players to get an edge over opponents simply through mechanical skill. And I'm not talking about the OP builds, you know, about the Alpha Bridge builds or whatever. I'm simply talking about some talents and skills in the game that had some mechanics to them that allowed the better players to get more use out of them than the players that weren't so good. Patch 1.4 and patch 1.5 are one example where we had critical save and on the move, which gave damage resistance to the player for 10 seconds if he either managed to pop a medkit in his last health segment or kill a target while moving. Those things aren't super hard to do, but it's not something that everybody was always capable of doing. You know, popping a medkit in your last health segment was a risk, and it gave a decent reward. This is why everybody in the Dark Zone, everybody that played PvP, pretty much ran with this talent 90% of the time, even after its nerf in patch 1.6. And the same goes for on the move. You know, killing a downed agent while moving isn't the hardest thing to do, but it gave you a pretty decent buff for about 10 seconds, which then made you a little bit stronger versus the second player you were fighting. It had some interesting mechanics that the better a player was, the more use he could get out of that. Patch 1.6 or patch 1.7, which is seen as some of the best PvP patches by many players, despite the fact that we had one-shot Seeker Mines. I mean, in this patch we had this mechanic where everybody ran a high-end build with the refreshed mask, and then everybody would use the first aid skill to pop it in the last segment while they were trading damage with another player at the same time.
That was crazy.
So was this super hard to do? Not really, but it required some practice, it took some skill, and it was always a risk to do, since if you're doing it too late, well, that would result in a death. But doing it right, it rewarded the player with a stronger heal, because you got the heal in the last segment. This was a fun mechanic for most PvP players. Same with the support station instant pop. You know, place it on the ground, trade some damage, and pop it at the last second to get the most value out of Unforgiving. Or let's talk about the recovery link in both group and solo. In group, you could use the recovery link to clutch save some teammates. But if you were a potato and weren't paying attention, well, that means your teammate is now dead. And if you played solo, you could use the unkillable frames that you got for about 1 second when this thing procced to trade damage at just the right time, which then allowed really experienced solo players that knew what they were doing to take a fight that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to kill maybe 2 or 3 players. These were all mechanics that of course you could combine with each other, integrate into builds, make your build around, and it could make it so that if you were skilled enough and experienced enough with these mechanics, you could make it work with any build really. You could make it work with purple gear, which I showcased many times on stream. And this is what I refer to as the outplay mechanics that the Division 1 have, and I think that's something that every PvP game needs to keep it interesting. You know, this little trend with the things that I mentioned earlier, by the way, all of these things got nerfed at some point or taken away. The first aid got changed to where you cannot use it while shooting anymore. Critical save and on the move had their values halved. The insta-pop on the support station now requires the support station to be on the floor for 10 seconds. Only the recovery link, unkillable frames stayed in the game, but I think that's just because of technical reasons more than anything. So yeah, these things got taken away, and the Division 2 continued this trend and pushed this all the way to 11 in regards of talents and skills. Now, how many skills or talents do we have that we can activate mid-fight to make a play to outplay the opponent? We have 0. We have absolutely 0. All skills have to be pressed before a fight because of the slow cast time, and even
I think Chem Launcher,
what the skills do, the way that they work.
I see people popping Chem Launcher mid-fight. I think Chem Launchers and shields are popped mid-fight. I think most of the time, you know, Chem Launchers are going to be guaranteed and pop mid-fight. Drones are going to be pre-fight and stuff like that. But as far as like the main thing, which is just like healing, like for example in Division 1, you would pop your med kit and you would pop your first aid and you would pop your support station. In Division 2, you pop your armor kit. Armor kits work mid-fight. I mean, I don't know if people don't use them. I use them and it works phenomenal. So my med kit, so my critical save would be my armor kit that gives me full health now. Chem Launcher is just like first aid. It's a little bit clunkier compared to it because you can just pop it on yourself and run away. But and it always heals you no matter where you went. Chem Launcher is more technical where you need to stand in the area, absorb it, then move. But people definitely spam those mid-fight. Or at least the good players I come across. Now, for the Hive, because the Hive, it's just not the way you want it to run. I can see where that would have to be pop pre, but I mean, even if you had a really good Hive and you dropped it mid-fight, you'd be able to do it. So, on those 3, everything else I agree with you. I mean, they have to be pre-popped, but I think the main ones that people use are definitely going to be during a gunfight, 100%. Especially in my case. I mean, my experience may be a lot different, but I definitely pop Chem Launchers mid-fight.
They don't allow for much outplay mechanic. They just allow you to tank a couple more bullets in the case of the deflector drone, or tank a couple more bullets in the case of the Chem Launcher. Or what is everybody running anyway in PvP, you know? The healer drone, you know, tank a little bit more damage that way. And this makes the PvP experience, in my opinion, just very dull at its core. as even the more skilled players have no means to do anything better than the opposing players, other than simply having a better build equipped that does more damage and also tanks more damage. And you might say, well, that's how a game like this is supposed to work. This is a game that's about builds, you know, putting your gear together and then making yourself stronger. So builds should be the determining factor that decides who's going to win a gunfight. And even though I think that that shouldn't be 100% the case, even in a game like this, even if I would agree to that argument, then I'd have to say, well, we have normalization, which then takes a lot of what is important about a build away from those builds and pushes everybody very close together. So now we have a game where skill doesn't really matter and the builds also don't really matter. And then you might respond with, well, isn't that what's good? You know, have a more fair environment. And then I'd have to say, well, sure, I'm okay with a completely fair environment. You know, I think that this is where a lot of people misunderstand me because they think I want to run around with a super OP build and kill all the new players in the Dark Zone. And while I did that on occasion, let's not lie.
Guys like you ruin the game, man.
Yeah, man. Because
we're cheating.
Yeah.
YouTubers don't ruin the game! My God!
It's a game, you don't have to cheat. If you can't win fair, then don't play. Everybody is using the RPM glitch and everything.
Yes, bro,
you're cheating,
Beam.
Man. Look at that, you're still alive. Oh! Cheat, man. I didn't shoot and I killed you, you see? It's cheat.
If you
Dude,
can't
Marco
win,
is a
don't
troll.
play.
I mean,
Jesus.
as funny as that is to me, that's not why I played the PvP. You know, I would be 100% fine.
Tell me why. I don't know. I just had like a epiphany. Why do players think like PvP players like we want to do like be bullies or something all the time? Like we sign on to make everybody's life harder. That's not how PvPers are. So just putting that out there because you know it's crazy. It just hit me. People always make it seem like I'm gonna say we PvP players just want to go around and ruin everybody's farming experience. Like, no, we just want a PvP in a PvP mode. Just put that out there.
Fine, if in the Dark Zone or in Conflict, everybody had the exact same build. The exact same build. It would be a little bit boring, but I would be okay with it. You know, if that's what normalization did, I would be fine with it. But then I would also want everybody to have these mechanics, these skills and these talents that allow for playmaking. I would be fine if everybody had the same build, if we had critical save on the move, if we had insta-pop for the support station, or having a heal while ADSing, just to name a couple of examples that I got from the Division 1. Obviously, those exact things wouldn't work for the Division 2, but, you know, you get the point. I wouldn't hate it if everybody was the same, it's just that everybody has about the same build now, and there's nothing you can do to change the outcome of a fight. And nothing is a little bit of an overestimate. Of course, there's always potatoes who just sit in cover and just chill there. And better players are still going to rack up more kills, but there's almost nothing. Let's just put it like that. You know, sure, I can probably play 1 or 2 hours of just memeing around with my friends, which is what I've been doing, you know, here and there. But beyond that, no, it just gets boring. But I don't want to linger around specific examples too long for this video, because this isn't a video that's trying to change things. I'm just sharing my opinion. So instead of just talking about more examples, I also want to talk about some other points, and that's the environment that we play PvP in, most notably the way that the Dark Zones are set up. So yeah, let's talk about the Dark Zones a little bit. Now with the turret and the normalization and the rogue cooldown and the removal of VoIP, it is clear that the developers had one goal in mind going into the Division 2. And that's to reduce the toxicity and reduce the PvPing and reduce the ganking that happened a lot in the Dark Zone in the Division 1. Are the developers successful in their goal? Well, yes and no. I don't believe that the current systems in place help to prevent toxicity or ganking, but I do also think that we see less ganking and toxicity in the Dark Zone. But that's more because PvP players don't really care to play the Dark Zone anymore, I think. Of course you're going to see less ganking, less PvP and less toxicity if there are less players to play PvP to begin with. I find it hard to put words to it, but I'll just try to show you. You know, we have checkpoint turrets, we have normalization, and we have all those things. And you can still bully players just...
If I have to say one thing, I hate checkpoint turrets. Range. Lower the range and I'm good. It can protect the door area, but anything past that, that's where it gets kind of excessive. That's just how I feel. Yeah. I get sniped by turrets all the time.
Just as easily in the dark zone, you can still gank them from behind when they're farming. You can still group up and then farm solo players in front of the safe house or in front of the checkpoints, even if you have a sniper build. I've done this many times in the Division 2. Already did this going as far back as the beta. You know, players still talk shit in the dark zone. It's just that this time they stand next to the turrets so that you cannot flag rogue and kill them. So no, I don't think that the current systems do much to prevent the ganking and the toxicity if the gankers, what a word that is, are determined in their goal. The thing that the turrets and the rogue cooldowns and the normalization do prevent, though, is proper PvP. The PvP that I'm actually interested in. The PvP where both parties want to fight each other simply because it's more fun to fight outnumbered as a rogue than it is to fight some randoms in conflict, right? You go rogue, you go manhunt with your team or alone, and you just see how many players you can take on as they keep coming towards you. That was the fun PvP experience from the Dark Zone, and that's just not in this game because of all these systems that just don't support that type of gameplay. You know, at best you're going to fight a couple people here and there, and fights are going to last like a couple of minutes, but as soon as one dies, he has to wait 2 minutes to go rogue again, and it just gets unorganized very, very fast. There are so many measurements taken here to prevent any proper PvP from happening. But it is still possible and even encouraged to shoot an unsuspecting player in the back and then run your timer off. Which to me, I just don't think that's exciting. Like, oh, I killed somebody and I stole their loot, now I got a rogue timer. I'm such a badass. Let me just run away, let me just run my timer off so I can steal his loot. Yeah. No, that's not what I want to do. You know, that's not why I play Division. But then you could say, all right. I see what you're talking about, Marco. You know, you do have a point. I personally don't care because I don't play PvP, but you do have a point. Well, why don't you just go to the Occupied Dark Zone? And here I'm sitting like, I'm glad you asked, because the Occupied Dark Zone is way worse. Way worse. Yes, the Occupied Dark Zone does not have normalization, and those shock turrets are also not a thing. But it also doesn't have any proper PvP balancing. You know, just an example, when I brought up that you can get shock bullets in the Dark Zone, with the new gear set and then shock enemy players and kill them without them being able to do anything, the response I got was, anything goes in the Occupied Dark Zone. And I'm just sitting there like, yeah, wow, that's great. That's not a fun experience. Half of the builds kill you in like 2 or 3 or 4 bullets, which then makes it a cheese fest. And on top of that, there's no rogue mechanic at all. So you could kill somebody and then nothing. So that feeling of you or your squad versus the world versus the server is gone, because you're no longer manhunt, and most of the time other players can't even find you if you actually want to hide after a kill. So what ends up happening naturally is you end up fighting in front of checkpoints where everybody can just respawn as soon as they died. And this is just, it looks so silly. It looks so silly, and it doesn't matter if you get a kill or if you die. There's no tension. You respawn, you know, you kill somebody, you kill another guy, you shoot again, you die, or you go back into the checkpoint to restock. It's exactly like Conflict, but with more players, cheesier builds, and more of a mess. It still doesn't make the PvP experience fun. So yeah, on top of the fact that the PvP has no outplay mechanics and the gameplay itself is extremely basic and dull.
So I agree, because he's speaking facts on what's actually going on. So even though I don't mind, because I don't care if you're in front of checkpoint or in the middle of DZ, I'm going to shoot at you. That's just how I want to PvP. I just want to shoot. I feel what he's saying. Compared to Division 1, you would run routes, right? You would go manhunt, you would go up and down the DZ, and that was the fun part. That's what we loved about it, right? You have to funnel people that come from all directions. We don't have that no more, and that sucks. And I miss it. I personally miss it because I love going 1v12 or 4v server or whatever. That feeling was dope when you had like a team pushing you from the right down the stairs, another team, and then you had like 3 random sets of solos and all. Just like that, I do miss. Is the checkpoint fighting fun for me? Because I love PvP so much, I have fun regardless. So it's hard for me to really gauge that. I don't want to give an opinion because I know I'm low maintenance on that. As long as I'm shooting at somebody and they're shooting back, I'm good. But I do understand that there's a lot more Dark Zone that's not used because you can't find nobody in Occupied. I spend most of my time in Occupied if I do Dark Zone because I want to use my full capacity build, right? What I grinded for. And it is irritating sometimes going around the Dark Zone, just farming landmarks until somebody pops up. Then you finally get into a fight and you just kill them in 2 seconds and then they're gone. And that's it. You can never find them again. Or you see extraction on the other side of the map and by the time you get there, they're gone. I feel him on that. But at the same time, I mean, we asked for a hardcore DZ. We're getting this. I do feel like it's going to change. I feel, honestly, the devs are going to change something. Whether it be bring the rogue system into the Occupied or whether it some kind of indicator where you know if players are around or whatever. Something along those lines where you know that PvP is an option. I feel is going to come. But I do definitely miss the Division 1 style PvP, but at the same time it is a new game, and as much as I want what's in Division 1, if it's not in here, then I have to work with what I have, which kind of throws you on a double-edged sword, right? On one hand, you want to enjoy it to the best possible, you're enjoying what the new is, but at the same time, you do miss the old stuff, but you understand that it can't be in a new game if it's not already in it, so it sucks.
The environments in the game that allow for PvP to occur are also, in one instance, set up in a way to prevent any proper PvP from happening, and in the other instance, it's just an unbalanced, unregulated mess that is only fun if you play with friends, and just meme around a little bit with silly builds, like a one-shot grenade build, or a one-shot sniper build, or an LMG that kills you in like 3 bullets. You know, just to have some fun, just to mess around, but nothing serious. And then we've only talked about the DZ so far, because that's the thing that I used to enjoy the most. But can we just talk about conflict for a second and what the actual fuck is going on with that game mode? I've just played a couple games today, just to see if I could, you know, look at it from a different light, maybe, you know, change my mindset about some of these things in PvP. I wanted to play it just one more time to really get a feel for it. And what did I encounter? Plenty of occasions where my damage just didn't register, plenty of occasions where players were just teleporting around because, I don't know, they were stuck in some weird animation. I figured out that my skill build, my healer build, doesn't actually work in conflict because the normalization lowers my skill power values and my mods are therefore not unlocked. So now I need to make a separate build for normalized as well, which is just another thing that adds to the frustration. And then there's also the spawns. You know, spawns are still not fixed, and there's still plenty of times when I or my teammates spawn behind the enemies if we die to the enemies. And it is just a mess. You know, there's this mechanic where you cannot throw nades or cannot throw skills into an enemy spawn, which is the spawn protection, right? And that's, I guess, a good thing to prevent them from being spawn camped too hard. But if you walk into that spawn and then walk back, the game will automatically flip the spawns, which then means that the enemy cannot use skills or grenades in their own spawn, but you can spam skills and throw grenades in their spawn and spawn camp them that way. You can use the spawn protection against the enemy. It is like, there is just so much wrong with the PvP in this game. And there's nothing that I can hold on to for me to take this game seriously. And it wasn't like that with the Division 1. What I could do with the Division 1, I could log in daily, and I could go into the DZ, and I could play. I could practice. I could try to get better at the game. I could take PvP somewhat serious, you know, practice the medkit timings, the movement, the aim, practice using skills. And even when I'm streaming some solo memeing, I guess, that still resulted in an interesting experience for myself and for anybody else watching. You know, when you play everything right and you get those 3 or 4 kills because you used all your talents and skills in the right way, stuff like that, you know, that's entertaining. You got the kills, your hard work paid off, and that made me want to keep playing the Division 1. And that is just missing from the Division 2. And this is something that I already said in my beta review, that the PvP in the Division 2 just doesn't have that. It can be fun for a couple hours, sure, you know, just to mess around a little bit, but it definitely doesn't have that long-term staying power for me. And if I'm being honest, I already got to the point with the Division 2 where, you know, I'm kind of done, and I'll just come back to the game when there are PvE updates in between. And it's not because the game is lacking content, the game has plenty of content. But without PvP, I simply have no reason to farm for gear in this game other than to get a somewhat decent build for the raid. You know, I don't care if I can beat the Stronghold under 5 minutes on challenge mode or heroic mode, you know, unless the mission is fundamentally different and a new experience on the harder difficulties, why would I care for a higher difficulty? It's just NPCs that are more tanky and that do more damage. I don't think that's content that I'm missing out on. I don't feel proud if I completed a challenge mode mission or a heroic mode mission. I'm not like, wow, I'm such a good gamer. You know, I don't get that. I don't get that at all from PvE. It's just like I play PvE so I can farm gear that I can use then in PvP. But if
I agree with that. I farm PvE to get PvP gear. Not necessarily a better PvE build. I mean, I make all kinds of builds. But if I had to choose what I'm farming for, it is PvP related. Do I share his lack of enjoyment for what's left for him in the game? No, I'm chilling. I'm personally at a good place. I feel like there's still a lot to be tampered with, and I'm kind of trying to embrace the new system as much as I can. But at the same time, realistically, one big thing for me, it was always hard for me to understand, thinking selfishly, right? It was always hard for me to understand, like, if you're not farming for PvP gear, what are you farming for? And a lot of people say, I want to farm for PvE gear, which is where you have to, you know what, honestly, there are people who do enjoy PvE as a focus. That's realistic, and you know what I'm saying? But as a PvP main, that was always my mindset. And I never played PvE in Division unless I had to. But in this game, I've grown to enjoy PvE a lot more, to the point where now I'm starting to, now I see why they want this. Because, like, let's say I want to PvP, but I want to have a good PvE experience. I want to be able to get through this as fast as possible because I want to be able to farm. And I think that's where PvP players have to meet with PvE players, right? Like, you know what? We don't relate because we want to just PvP. We want gear for PvE, but we understand why you guys will want to keep things certain ways so that you can cater to having your PvE build to make your PvE build experience better when you're farming and all that. So that's kind of like, I'm on both sides with that, but honestly, I do 100% agree. Me personally, I want PvP gear. Just like the gear sets that came out, I'm hyped because it's new gear sets and I can make builds with it, but I would have been more hyped had they been PvP focused, if that makes sense. So continuing on, we got 2 minutes left.
If I don't want to play PvP because the PvP isn't fun, then I also don't have to make perfect builds or farm for builds. It's that simple. It's that simple. And I could make a million videos on things that I would like to see improved with this game. But honestly, I think the whole experience is just dumbed down so much and so fundamentally uninteresting that, again, it would require major overhauls for it to be even slightly entertaining in the long run. And as I said, no one's waiting for that. The devs aren't going to do it. The biggest part of the player base are like, hell no, because you'll fuck up PvE. You know, we might get stuff like a rogue timer in the Occupied Dark Zone. You know, give it a few months, we'll see stuff like that. But I don't see them reworking the skills or the talents just to make PvP more interesting. So best case scenario, Division 3. Maybe that will have interesting PvP. Who knows? I feel like the PvP in this game was made to please the PvE players and the more casual audience. And as a result, you know, the more hardcore player base that likes PvP isn't going to play it. And the PvE audience is still not going to play PvP because they don't like PvP to begin with. So now no one is enjoying the PvP. No one is a big word, but you get the point.
Very big.
I know that what I'm going to say probably isn't true, but I just feel like this whole game was made as a big fuck you to any PvP player or to anybody that actually wants to get good at a game. It is just so dumbed down. It is unbelievable. But yeah, I'm gonna stop ranting about this now. I wanted to keep this a constructive video, but I guess I started to go down the ranting path. But let me know how you all feel about this. Are you gonna grind endlessly for slightly better builds just so you can clear PvE content 2 minutes faster? Are you enjoying PvP enough to actually make builds for it and play it in the long run? Am I really just maybe burned out with this game? Like, it could truly be the case. I honestly do not know at this point anymore. I don't. I just feel like the PvP is so boring in this game. Not to mention broken. But that can be fixed. It's just so boring. That's the issue. Anyway, as always, guys, I will see you all later. Or, like they say in the Netherlands,
zie je later. All right. So, my true opinion, Marco, if you end up watching this or if somebody goes and tells him, Marco, I just think because you're an advanced player, you're a super technical player, and you know your mind is way more expanded than common players, right? When you see talents, you don't just see raw damage, you see synergy and all. You see deeper into it, and it always ties back in PvP, right? When you see a talent, you don't look, how can I use this in PvE? You're like me. I don't look at a talent and be like, first thing, oh, how can I kill NPC with this? No, it's how can I apply this to a player in a PvP fight? I think because you have played so much so far, right? I don't know how many hours you have, but I'm pretty sure you have enough to where you've tested everything in the game. I mean, you made your tier lists, and you did all that, and obviously it's super fucking ultra advanced, so you know what you're talking about. I think even though you didn't want to have an expectation for what PvP was supposed to be, you kind of set a high standard in hopes, like a lot of people, and it just didn't hit you exactly where you wanted it to be at, even though you still probably destroy people and do all that. It's just not at the pace that you like. I think that you are just burned out currently right now, because most of the content we have right now is PvE related. Your fix, which is PvP, is not being satisfied, and everybody has their different levels, right? Like for me, I'm just like you. We're all about PvP. That's it. Like my channel is dedicated to PvP mostly, and I do PvE as a help for my subscribers who like it. But I think, like, if we were to line up our levels, like, you need this much PvP action, or not even action. You need this much PvP content and situations and all this, and I need like this much. So for me, I'm like, you know what? Even though I know I don't have this much left, even though it should be here, I'm just gonna chill. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm more seeing this as a work in progress. Even though a lot of people, I don't know how Marco feels, but some people are like, it should have been like this. Division 1 was the example. This should have been like this. That would have been the case if all the mechanics and everything were kept from Division 1 into Division 2. Division 2 is a revamp and a new concept using things that they know they shouldn't do from Division 1. It's not, we took everything we learned from Division 1 to make Division 1 better in Division 1.5. You feel me? And I think that's where Marco is like, you know what? Like, in his head, before we played, we all thought it could only be like that, right? It's going to be like a super DLC, but it changed the whole game while keeping certain things that kept it feeling similar, but the whole system's different. And because that system's different, we constantly compare it to Division 1, and we keep battling with what it should be like with Division 1 and all this, and I think that's where we conflict ourselves, and we get irritated, and we lose patience for things, because we're like, if Division 1 had this, why can't Division 2 have it? And which is reasonable, right? Like for me, I love Division 1 PvP. I mean, even though it was broken as hell sometimes, and we all know this. I mean, the devs know, we all know this, but that's what made it beautiful, right? Like my sticky bomb, right? I had fun with it, and it was broken as hell. And it's just certain qualities in Division 1 that we're trying to have a nostalgic like link to, but we can't. And I think because Marco got to a point where he decided, like, I have nothing else to do that's going to satisfy me in my playstyle, what I want from it, I'm burnt out. So anything that transcribes, you have to look, why am I burnt out already? You're going to start asking yourself, what is the reason? And Marco's reason is the PvP isn't enough for him, because as of right now, because he's so passionate about PvP, he in his head, he's like, there should be something that should be keeping me 1 month in still wanting the PvP, and he doesn't have that, which is why he feels this way, which is 100% logical. He didn't necessarily bash it. There's some things that he said that, you know, it's a little bit more biased, and I mean, we're all gonna be biased in certain things, and that's fair. Like, I'm never, even if I 100% disagree, like for example, and I'm being blunt, I disagree that there's outplaying mechanics. I outplay situations all the time. You know, knowing, especially now that you don't have the crazy amount of insta heals that you used to have, being able to time those armor kit outplaying is super important. Being able to hit a corner and pop that armor kit, knowing that how much of a risk it is because you're standing still before they come and push you, or shoot their armor off and push them to a point where you can have time to heal. Those are outplay mechanics. It's because he doesn't have the amount of people playing. I think that's what it is. Marco, I promise you, if me and you had what we probably had in Division 1, where we dealt hordes and hordes of players, you would discover what it is for you personally that would be considered outplaying when you're taking out 2-3 teams. But because you're only playing one team at a time, 2-3 guys, you just shoot them, and that's it. You don't have to worry about getting pressed and how am I going to handle this and take out. We don't have that right now. And who knows? Like I said, I hope one of my division things is like, please bring more players in. But that's one of my likes. I think if we had more waves and more encounters and deeper, more players involved in when you're in a PvP situation, most times it's 6 players max probably. Like even in conflict, hardly is it ever 4-on-4. You know what I'm saying? If you had more situations where it's like Division 1 where you're dealing with more players, I think that's where Marco's fix for wanting to outplay will come in, right? Finding how do I outplay this? But because he hasn't got to exercise that, I think that's why he feels this way about PvP. And I think that's why most people feel like that. It's because the situations are so bland. Find somebody, shoot him, kill him, done. Find somebody, shoot him, kill him, done. That's what people think PvP is because that's their experience. And everybody's situation is different. For streamers and YouTubers, it's a lot different than just somebody who just signs on, because stream snipers and stuff, that ups it, right? That ups our experience on how much players we're dealing with versus somebody who just ran into a dark zone and it's empty and they don't find nobody. Find one guy, you know, the NPCs get in between, injure the guy, you put 2 bullets in him, he's dead, he's gone. You see what I'm saying? So what it comes down to and what I feel when it comes to PvP, I just think, I'm about to say something controversial. People are going to hate what I have to say about this, but I'm keeping it real. We have to give it time. And even though we should or should not, that's not the question. I'm not saying you have to kiss ass and be okay. I'm just saying you kind of have to see what they're bringing out for PvP because they've spoken into that. You see what I'm saying? They have plans for those game modes. They have plans for what they're going to do for that. When that's delivered, that's when we can step on that. And that's when we can really compare. Because really, we're in month 1. You feel me? And it's good and bad. We're in month 1 and people like Marco are already burnt out. And then we're also in month 1 where it's a lot more content than what we had in Division 1. Even, period, gear, everything. Like, people don't remember month 1 Division. Like, the only reason it was brand new everything because nobody knew what to build or what to do yet. But the options that we have are way more diverse. So, are there super strong things? There are always going to be super strong things dominating PvP. There's always going to be something broken, no matter how balanced. But the focus is like, where do we want it to be? Because the game just came out. And I'm not using that as an excuse. I'm just saying, we know that at least there's something to look forward to, whatever the changes may be. I'm not saying they're going to be perfect. I'm not going to say they'll be good or bad. I'm just saying it's different than like right now with Division 1. What you have is what you get. That's it. There's nothing changing. You're going to have that forever. At least we're in the baby stages of this game. And through videos like this, through out speaking, through, you know, everybody working together and complaining, whatever they got to do, something's going to change at some point. And we don't know what it's going to look like in 2, 3, 4 months. PTS is going to come out, changes, all that stuff. So that's been my reaction to this. Marco, shout out to you, man, for your intricate video. Keep speaking out, you feel me? Even if people mark you as a bad guy, regardless whether you super positive or super negative, say what's on your heart, bro. Keep it real. And yeah, and shout out to everybody who stuck through to this video, and developers. Like, in no way, shape, or form, if I were you in this situation, I wouldn't take this as hard-earned criticism in any way. This is just a passionate dude disappointed because he wants more from it. You feel me? It's not bashing the whole game trash. We know the game's phenomenal. It's just more so a cry out from the PvP side saying, hey, can we have something? If that makes sense. So, love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Hope you guys enjoy, man. PvP, man. Let's just bow our heads and just hope that everything plays out in the right way. PvP gets up to where everybody's happy, or most people, because you never have everybody happy. Because fixing PvP is breaking it something else for somebody else, so we're never gonna have that balance. But I love y'all, man. It's been real. It's been a hell of a long video, probably my longest ever. I don't know, but we had to make sure we got through this because this is actually a very serious topic, especially something that we're putting out before raids and these stuff even come out. So I love y'all. Appreciate y'all. If you are new, hit that subscribe button. We almost at 60K. Let's get it. And let me know what y'all think below. Let's have a discussion, a real ass discussion in the comments. I'm really curious to see how y'all feel about Marco's view and my point of view. Yeah, so love y'all. Your boy is out.